Good afternoon. Welcome to our West Campus Diversity Town Hall. My name is Lee Bitsoy, and I'm the Chief Diversity Officer here at Stony Brook. And my preferred pronouns are he, him, and his. And so we're delighted to have you join us today to learn about the progress that we've been making with our diversity plan. And we really want to highlight our students and their participation with what we're doing. And you'll hear their stories later on. And through my office and our collective efforts, we've been really striving to create a safe and welcoming environment for all. And we do this for all of our campuses, for the East Campus, West Campus, Southampton campus, and our teaching hospitals, and our Veterans Home. So we're constantly working to ensure that we are receptive to innovative ideas, diverse backgrounds, perspectives, talents, and abilities. And we aspire to treat all with dignity and respect. And the way that we do that is from an intersectional perspective. And this acknowledges our multidimensionality, including our race, our ethnicity, gender identity, our biological sex, our gender expression, sexual orientation, age, religion, ability, socioeconomic status, veteran status, and national origin. And the implementation of our diversity plan is a team effort, and that requires everyone's participation. So we thank you for being connected and engaged in our endeavors. But before I go any further, I'd like to acknowledge the unwavering support of our president, Dr. Stanley, and also my boss, Judy Kremen, who's the Chief Deputy to the President and the Senior Vice President for Government and Community Relations. Their stalwart support for our efforts is very much necessary and embraced and welcome. And I also want to thank our faculty and VPs, vice presidents, and also our deans for their engagement and their support with what we're doing. Most importantly, I want to reach out to thank the students, both undergraduate, graduate, and also our professional school students in our Health Sciences campus, and also our residents as well. So we're really embarking on a journey that's about cultural transformation. So I also appreciate the support of our working groups, our advisory council, our steering committee, for they provide guidance and advice with the implementation of our diversity plan. I also want to thank the various offices that we have been partnering with throughout the year, most notably FSA and Culinary, for their support in programming our cross-cultural events. My office has collaborated with various planning committees, and they include the Heritage Months for National Hispanic Heritage Month, Native American Heritage Month, Black History Month, and Asian Heritage Month. And these events really exemplify our collaborative spirit. Speaking of teamwork, I look to students and colleagues to help with the heavy lifting of culture change, and that includes our panelists today. So panelists, please introduce yourselves.
I think I have the microphone, so I'll start. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rick Gatteau. I am the Interim Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students, and I direct our Higher Education Administration program.
Jen Rossler, Senior Manager of Recruitment and Employment Services.
My name is Ian Lesnick. I use he, him as pronouns. I am the USG Director of Diversity Affairs, and I'm an undergraduate student here.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tayana Abad, pronouns she, her, hers. I am a student leader on campus, and I'm an undergraduate student.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Elijah Duff. I'm a student athlete here on campus.
Hi, I'm Chuck Tabor. I'm Vice Provost for Graduate and Professional Education and Dean of the Graduate School and a Professor in Political Science.
Good afternoon, Shelley Germana, she, her, hers, and I'm the Interim Assistant Provost for Academic Success.
Last but not least, I'm Cheryl Chambers. I'm the Associate Dean for Multicultural Affairs in the Dean of Students Office.
Thank you, panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. So the agenda for today is very straightforward. We'll review our overarching goals, and then we'll talk about the themes that we identified from our town hall meetings in the fall, and then we'll hear from our students, and then we'll move into our Q&A section. So this is just a review of the overarching goals. Number 1, improve the diversity of the Stony Brook community through enhanced recruitment and retention. Number 2, expand educational, research, healthcare, and other efforts to ensure that Stony Brook students have the ability to thrive as members of the campus community and as global citizens in a diverse society. Number 3, support the development of a campus climate that values diversity, equity, and inclusion in a way that promotes the ability of members of the community to thrive and to achieve their individual goals. Number 4, establish a culture of accountability and assessment around diversity and inclusion initiatives and policies. As you recall, we had 2 town halls in the fall of 2017, and based on feedback and engaging in conversation and dialogue and discussions with attendees and students and faculty and staff, here are the themes that emerged. The first one was the need for more transparency with how we are implementing our diversity plan. Number 2 is how do we monitor progress and how are we looking at change throughout our community. And number 3 is more active participation from our students. So the student voice was not as prominent as we would like for it to be. And on that note, in our original diversity plan, students were part of the working groups. Some of those students have graduated or are getting ready to graduate. So we have 3 students here today to talk about their work with what we're doing, or their involvement with what we're doing. And the 4th is about action. How are we really applying action, and what are the outcomes of our plan? On the transparency part, we now have a diversity website, and you can monitor our progress. As you'll see through the way that the website is set up, there's information about our office. We provide resources. We provide a link to the diversity plan, and this is where you'll see the plan itself, the original plan, and then you can also track the progress on our implementation work plan. And that's where you can see the quarterly updates that are provided by my team, and that team includes me and Lauren Lamagna, who's our executive fellow. So she's done an excellent job in laying this out on a grid so that we can track progress on a quarterly basis. And so what you see here are the tasks that are related to the original diversity plan, and then you have an oversight, and then there's what you don't see is the information at the more granular level where there are implementation leads, the people who are on the ground, if you will, leading the change regarding these tasks. And when you go to this, you'll see that there are different classifications. You'll see that this one's completed, but when you move the cursor over that section, it'll provide additional information, which is what you see in that little box on the right-hand side. So for the change in progress of what we're doing, we are in the process of developing our 2018-2019 implementation plan. Right now, we're reviewing all of our current implementation tasks. We're determining the status of specific tasks. Are they completed, or are they ongoing, or are they under review? And if they have been completed, how are they being sustained? How are they being institutionalized for future years? And those that are ongoing, they just require monitoring. And then those that are under review, maybe there was a task that really called for an additional amount of resources, and so maybe that's something that can be carried over into next year. So that's why it says under review. So then we also have notations about some tasks to be completed by June of this year, and again, some will be extended into 2018-2019. So in developing the implementation tasks for next year, we have reconvened the working groups, and I've been meeting with them, as has Lauren, and we're also providing opportunities for you to provide input through these town halls and our online feedback form. We also have begun more intentional student engagement and participation through the Student Diversity Leadership Council. And this is the diversity plan feedback form that I referred to, and this is where you can find it under the diversity plan, and on the left-hand side you see feedback, and then you go into this form to provide your feedback, comments, or questions. So on the student side, after numerous discussions and different conversations I had with student affairs, but also student leaders, this need emerged to have the students have a platform, and that emerged through the establishment of the Student Diversity Leadership Council. And the purpose of the council is really to provide student leaders a platform to participate in the progress of our diversity plan. It's also an opportunity for student group leaders to assess needs, provide recommendations, and influence policy on any issues related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. There's also going to be student representation in our steering committee meetings, and they will also contribute to strengthening our culture of transparency and student involvement. And most importantly, we were able to streamline the efforts around student engagement with the Office of Multicultural Affairs and the Diversity Leadership Roundtable and the newly formed Diversity Committee of the USG, and that has come about in the form of diversity dialogues, which you may have seen advertised in and around campus. So for the Student Diversity Leadership Council, we did an overview. I did this with Cheryl, and I believe we have over 400 student groups. Is that correct, Cheryl?
Yeah,
Over 400.
like 460 plus.
Okay, so out of all of those groups, and they've been formed around interests, affinity, ethnicity, etc. So what we did was take a look at the ones that are prominent around campus, and that's based again on the way that we approach diversity around race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, expression, religion, socioeconomic status, but also the way that we consider our patriots and our veterans as well. So the 21 groups that have been invited to the council are listed here. And we also just recently added the Commuter Students Association because they're also part of our daily lives. And so we wanted to be as inclusive as we possibly could be. And today we have 3 students with us. And they include Ian Lesnick, Diversity Director for USG, Elijah Duff, who's our student athlete, and then Tiana Abad, who's, amongst other things, a USG senator. So first up, we will hear from Ian.
Good morning again, or excuse me, good afternoon. Again, my name is Ian Lesnick. I'm the Director of Diversity Affairs for USG. And just a little bit about my position. It was started back in August, or excuse me, it started back in the spring semester, and I began the position in August. And I've been working this year to establish what this position is going to look like for undergraduate students. So what programming we can do, what dialogues we can have. We started with the USG Diversity Committee, so we can hear student voices, and like Dr. Bitsoy was just saying, we transformed that into the student diversity dialogues. And so just a little bit about what I do, why I got involved. So I actually was a servant leader intern at the Freedom School, which is a national program which historically serves Black and Latinx students, but students from low socioeconomic statuses. And I was at a training in Tennessee for that program, and there was one speaker who spoke about her impact, and she was basically the head of education for the city of Washington, D.C. And she shared that she was able to use her voice and her position to help out all the students in D.C. By changing the education system to allow the learning of foreign languages and music as well, rather than just doing math and reading over and over and over. And so that resonated with me and how I can use my privileges and my lived experiences to help those around campus. And so I assumed this position again in August under Ayan Zubair, who's the current president. And I met with campus administrators, one of them being Dean Chambers and Dr. Bitsoy. And when I met Dean Chambers, she shared so much about Stony Brook and all the things that she has done, history of what Stony Brook students have done, how we've changed over the years, which is really incredible. And she has kind of taken me under her wing, which is I'm super grateful for, just because she has provided me incredible mentorship. But working together, we've been able to collaborate on programs, listen to student concerns, bring those concerns up to administration, and we've really made a whole bunch of progress solidifying what this role does across campus and making sure that it can last throughout the future, so that we have this representation for all students. All right, thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tayana Abad. As mentioned earlier, my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm currently a junior. I am a political science and health science major. I'm pretty involved on campus. I'm an EOP student of summer 2015. I am an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. I came to this country at the age of 6, and I currently reside in the Bronx, New York. A little bit about my involvement on campus. It's going to be a long list. So I am a resident assistant. I am a College of Arts and Sciences senator for the undergraduate student government. I am also a member of the Student African American Sisterhood, along with the Women Leadership Council. I'm an undergraduate facilities manager at the Student Activity Center, and I'm also an hermana of Sigma Lambda Upsilon, Señoritas Latinas Unidas Sorority Incorporated, and I'm also part of 2 honor societies. But aside from all of my involvement on campus, I recognize that diversity is something that's very crucial to me, and it plays a huge factor in my life. So everything that I do on campus, I always try to find a way to incorporate it with diversity, to teach others about the richness of diversity. So for instance, as the only Latina in USG, I feel like it is my responsibility to bring about the awareness and bring about the concerns of all the minority students on campus. So for instance, I actually hosted, along with Ian, the multicultural show and food tasting event last semester, thanks to Dr. Chambers, who brought it up to my attention. And basically, this was an event that focused on bringing more awareness about different cultures and different ethnicities to campus in a very delightful and a very fun way. It was a very educational program, and we actually got a lot of positive feedback from that. And I've also been working on different ways to impact my residents. So for instance, what I would do bulletin boards that focus on diversity. I would have those uncomfortable conversations, because nowadays the political climate is not exactly where we would like it to be. So I would have those uncomfortable conversations with my residents and with people that I see outside, and we would just have that dialogue, and we would just talk about things that are happening, ways that we can change our campus community and the community around us. So those are just some positive ways that I'm bringing about changes. Also this summer, I will be part of the RA training committee. So this is continuing, starting this summer, it is going to be my 3rd year being an RA. And I see that within the position there has been a lot of improvements. However, I'm a very vocal person, so I love to bring about more changes. So I will be part of that RA training committee just to bring about more changes when it comes to diversity. So, and then I know that another question was, who is your motivation? So when it comes to motivation, I would like to say that my grandparents are definitely my motivation. They always teach me to just keep fighting for what you believe in, and don't let society's limitations hold you back. That's all I have to say.
So good afternoon. My name is Elijah Duff. I'm a student athlete on campus, also a student leader. So, I'm 19 years old, history major, and I have aspirations to become a special education teacher. So my story here is similar to a lot of the student athletes on campus. I kind of came here with a narrow vision, just thinking about really I wanted to go play football for the rest of my life, go to the league, stuff like that. I wasn't really conditioned to think outside of that little box that, I was in. As time went by, though, I kind of saw what I was doing to myself by thinking that way. In a sense, like I limited myself to a lot of things, and a lot of stuff passed by. So that's kind of a reoccurring theme, I guess you could say, with athletes here. They kind of, I don't want to say, they go to class, go to sport, go to their respective sports, and that's pretty much it. Like I said, that's something that I noticed for myself, and like I said, for my teammates. And I kind of want to do something different, and I also kind of wanted to make it more of a norm to be more involved with things, be more included. So kind of with that, starting off, I met Dr. Jarvis Watson over there, and I saw myself being involved with Student African American Brotherhood, and through that, my first year there, I served in the membership recruitment chair. And so with that being said, I saw that as my way to include, like I said, my brothers on the football team and other black male student athletes, like I said, be more involved on campus, because I saw the benefits of doing so. So with that being said, with my vision, I kind of saw that come to life with a program we had. It was called A Walk in Your Shoes, Leading a Successful Life Outside of Football. So in which we had past African-American football players who came down to speak to us about, the importance of being involved and how it kind of shaped them, like I said, their entire experience here, and how it kind of led them into a successful path on, in their respective fields. So we had one that we sold like medical equipment. We had another entrepreneur. We had one that worked in our music business, and like basically it just stressed the importance of not sticking to only one thing. Not being not staying, like I said, so narrow-minded. And also through that experience, it caught the eyes of my athletic director, Dr. Sean Hembron. So with that being said, also he actually funded us to go to Texas, and with that was we went to the Black Student Athlete Summit, and I felt like that there was like the biggest eye-opener for me. Like I said, I saw vice presidents, I saw athletic directors, I saw, like I said, people that wasn't even involved in athletics coming out to speak at this conference, to talk about, like I said, the importance of being involved and shaping the, not even black male student athlete experience, but the black student athlete experience as a whole, because like I said, that's really a problem that persists on campuses all around, from Division I all the way down to Division III. So like I said, I realized that wasn't just something that was going on here. So like I said, I was with Dr. Jarvis Watson, Deron Newman, Greta Schranger, and everybody. We went out there, and also my fellow teammate Sam Kamara. So we went out there, and like I said, just seeing all those people, like I said, look like me, and their plan, like I said, just to make our experience better as a whole. Like I said, that really just opened a lot for me. Also, from there, we kind of wanted to emulate that a little bit and bring something here on campus. So we have our own thing called a Black Student Athlete Huddle. And basically it's just like a safe haven for student athletes to come together and, like I said, just talk about an array of topics, like I said, from relationships with coaches, like I said, involvement on campus, our experience at a predominantly white institution like Stony Brook University, identity crisis, and all types of things like that. Like I said, just to get that conversation started and kind of connect the community, and also get us involved with, like I said, the rest of the Stony Brook community. Because like I said, I feel like there's a disconnect between us. So like I said, as I close this, I'm going to leave 3 things. I feel like my college experience and my teammates' college experience won't be based off of solely the athletic experience. Also, I realize the power that my voice has, like I said, serving as like a representative for student athletes and bringing up certain issues like this that, should be brought up and it's not really talked about too much, and also paying it forward. For SAB, we have a saying called, "I'm my brother's keeper." So like I said, just holding everybody accountable for certain things and making sure that as I'm doing good, like I said, my brother is also. So like I said, paying it forward. Like I said, I'm just sharing my testimony of success in front of you as a way of doing so. So thank you.
Thank you. Isn't that awesome? Thank you again for sharing your stories and really about how you're making an impact in our diversity work and in our efforts. So moving on the employee side, we are looking at employee training opportunities. And to date, for Ready in particular, under the successful leadership of Robbie Kincaid, this 2-year pilot project has been very productive. And Robbie's here with us today. Robbie, please stand so we can thank you for all the work that you're doing. And to date, she's conducted over 65 seminars with over 850 participants. And we are also collaborating with FSA and Starbucks to create a training module and experience on May 29th, 2018. So that'll be coming up soon. And so from this project, we have looked at ways in which we need to strengthen and enhance what we have around employee training. And we have identified 4 training strands and 4 modules and 4 approaches, one for faculty, one for staff and campus educators. And what I mean by campus educators are our employees. So our students interact with all of you in some capacity, whether the people who care for us or clean up after us or make sure that we're safe. These are all of these people are campus educators, and our students are learning from all of us all the time. And so we also have a call for a student track and then also for the hospital staff. So these are the ways that we are looking at developing these training modules and approaches. In particular, we will have an employee training day on October 9th. We have a fall break for the first time this year. So the training will take place on October 9th, and it's really about being pragmatic and the skill building components of interacting with students. And there'll be a faculty component and also a staff component. On the faculty side, they're asking for toolkits. How do you manage a classroom inclusively? How do you interact with students? And so sometimes the cultural competency level it varies, and so we need to have a uniform approach. And one of the ways that I like to look at this is that for us to create a diversity temperature so that it's on a thermostat, so that it's a certain level as opposed to a thermometer which measures it and that sort of goes up and down. We want to be a thermostat around cultural competency. So we now turn to the Q&A portion of our program. There are various questions that are submitted online, and we think about which ones are pertinent to our conversation, and we actually have four. And the first one might seem redundant, but it was submitted online, and I'd like to ask each of our panelists to answer this question. And it reads, may the individuals involved please explain what diversity means to them and how they think they are bringing diversity to campus.
I have the microphone, so I'll go first. So obviously diversity means many things on a university campus. I'll just highlight three that I think are very important to me. And I'll start on a personal note. The social justice dimension has always been very important to me. Looking at me, you wouldn't know that I grew up in Africa. I didn't come to the United States until I was 16. And as a result, I have always had a very deep appreciation of inequality and the impact of inequality on people's lives and on conflict and so on. And so this really translated into my interest in becoming a social scientist. That's why I chose the career path that I ended up in. Led me to be a political scientist interested in these issues, and then led me as an administrator at Stony Brook to really champion issues of diversity. The second issue is that we're a public university. We serve our community. And who is our community? Our community is much more diverse than we are. This is something we need to address. And the third issue is the diversity of ideas. That is, a university is a place where we exchange ideas, where we make discoveries, where we learn new things. And we can only do that effectively if we have a diverse set of ideas at the university. And what creates diverse ideas? Diverse experiences, diverse cultural backgrounds, diverse linguistic backgrounds. All these things are the essential bedrock of diversity of ideas.
I have to follow that up. I think this is a great question, and I also want to reiterate that I think diversity has been shorthand for a lot of different things. I think for me, when I think about it, it means listening, learning, reflecting, and acting. And I think that when we talk about diversity and we understand it to mean difference, I think that that's important. It's certainly necessary, but in order for it to be meaningful, right, it's not sufficient. And so, it's important that things like concepts and action related to equity and inclusion and community, right, are also involved in any of our discussions or any of our understandings about diversity. And so that's how I always try to sort of reframe and refocus, diversity for myself. And those things require self-consciousness, right, empathy, responsibility to each other in our common humanity, and in a way that we can all sort of reach our fullest, and most authentic potential. And one of the things, just for me, on a personal level that I try to do is to always hold myself accountable. It's important that I role model accountability for myself in everything that I do here on campus and all of the interactions that I have. And I don't know if people are familiar with the phrase of, it's essentially the surrendering your privilege of unknowing. Right, sort of surrender your privilege of unknowing the way that your actions and the way that your privilege and the way that your experiences, right, and the impact that we have on each other. And so accepting discomfort and accepting feedback and really listening and learning, I think, are the important pieces of diversity, at least for me.
Thank you. Again, I'm Cheryl Chambers from the Office of Multicultural Affairs, and I've been working in this area of promoting diversity and multiculturalism all of my career, most of which has been here at Stony Brook. I won't tell you how many years. 2 digits, and the first digit is not a 1. And then also at other institutions prior to being here at Stony Brook. But for me, when I think of diversity, I feel that it's the requisite and it is fundamental to the success, the true success of any college or any university. I mean, basically, diversity refers to, in its simplest form to me, those characteristics that make us unique as individuals. I'm talking about human diversity now, but also connect us with other people because we have commonality and common bonds. And so when we talk about diversity, it's not just about race and ethnicity, although in society there tends to be a great emphasis on that, and it's an important aspect. But there also are secondary and even tertiary, if you will, dimensions of human diversity, things that we do not see or know about in another individual until we make connections and we get to know them and we interact and we hear their stories and empathize and understand. But diversity also entails, as Dr. Tabor said, social justice. And that is making certain that every day, in the small things we do, and the things that we also do as we interact with the various groups that we're connected with, that we don't perpetuate behaviors and thought processes and in our language, do not perpetuate injustice in language and in the things that we do, in the way that we treat each other. So there is that aspect. I think that stems from diversity. And certainly social justice. That is the fair and equitable treatment of each other as human beings. So that's a whole lot, but that's what diversity does mean to me. But it also refers to different ways of thinking and of learning and different ideologies. And the beauty of being at a university is this is a place, and should be a place, where there's discourse and where different ways of thinking and different perspectives are promoted and are honored and have a place to be expressed within our community. And then thirdly, and I'd want to add that when I think about diversity, I also think about physical diversity. That is the environment, the campus environment, and how that environment reflects the diversity of the communities within the environment, how buildings are appointed, what art or what is visually within a space that is welcoming and accommodating, and the messages that are sent, throughout the different facilities and buildings that we have here that should reflect the diversity that characterizes us all. Thanks.
So good afternoon again, Elijah Dove. So, my explanation won't be as lengthy as theirs. But like I said, diversity to me, I feel like more so based off, like I said, my situation right now. Like I said, I feel like it's just really an inclusion of, like I said, not even just race as of right second, not just race, but like I said, it's inclusion of a different group, and a different culture. Like I said, and that's really obviously football for us, or just sports in general, because like I said, I feel like we're so wrapped up in our own bubble, like I said, that we don't pursue these other groups, these other organizations, these other people. Like, we don't really, like I said, come outside of our own circle. So, and like I said, even also, like I said, within sports, speaking on race, like I said, diversity, like I said, I feel like it's a lack in that, you know? And like I said, with that kind of, like, that entails, like I said, with a lot of things, in a sense, like a lack of diversity within our sports staff and stuff like that. It's kind of like not seeing those that look like me, you know, and having to constantly deal with people that maybe won't understand where I'm coming from or something like that. Like I said, won't understand, like I said, my background, because like I said, we're from two totally different backgrounds. And not saying, like I said, they're not open to accept or open to understand certain things, but like I said, it's always a disconnect that I feel like that definitely, like I said, obviously needs to be fixed. But like I said, for the most part right now, you know, I feel like it's really the inclusion of, like I said, different groups and stuff like that. And like I said, just learning to being open to understand and learning to accept those different groups. So.
So for me, by the definition of diversity, diversity is inherent across the world, right? We all have these different lived experiences, different backgrounds. But when we come to institutions like Stony Brook or towns and cities, whatever it may be, we want to make sure we're working on that inclusion of all people, like Elijah was just talking about, and then also the celebration of all these differences, whether it be in where you come from, what you do, what you eat, what you believe, all of those things. And then, again, touching on what Dean Chambers said, making sure that we're being active in supporting those communities that maybe aren't well represented or aren't actively included in those dialogues and whatever it may be. So really just we have diversity across campus, although it absolutely can be improved. That diversity across the world is what we're bringing to Stony Brook. That celebration and that inclusion is what we need to focus on.
It's kind of not fair going at the end, right? Last week we had the privilege of going first, and now everyone has so eloquently said all of the things that I was feeling and how I try to represent myself on a day-to-day basis at this university. I do feel that there are so many facets to diversity, and so to try to just, simply define it would just be silly. For me, it's coming to the table open-minded, respectfully, coming with your story and realizing that everybody is coming with a story. Everybody, and you can't tell that story just by looking at somebody. And so, as you had said before, being open to hear other people's stories, because the more stories we hear, the more voices that are at the table, that's really what's going to help us all open up and be more open-minded, and that directly reflects on the decisions that we make, the policies that we write, all of that, and that can just make us better as a campus community. And the one thing that I think is most important when we talk about diversity is inclusion, because we can do all the right things and we can recruit a diverse staff and we can get everyone here, but if we then tell them once they get here to just get in line and do it the way we've always done, it's all for naught. And so we can't have the conversation about diversity without also having the conversation about inclusion.
So I'm the last to go, I think. So let me say maybe what diversity is not. And I think diversity is not a checklist. And diversity is not just having conversation. I think diversity to me is living it every day. And that means, echoing a lot of the words that were shared before, it's having respectful conversation with others, learning about difference, having a genuine desire to learn from others. And I'm going to share a brief quote that actually has always stuck with me from one of my graduate professors at my days at UVM. And he always said, in his philosophical dialogue that we'd always have in class, he'd always say, find the truth in what you oppose and the error in what you espouse. And that's always stuck with me because I always think of that in the context of diversity. And the only way you can challenge yourselves on both sides of that sentence is to engage with others in diverse conversation. To bring it a step forward, I know the latter part of the question was that what do we do, and how do we help bring diversity to campus? And to echo a bit of what Dean Tabor talked about, I shared this at the last diversity panel we had, but I think it's important to reiterate. Being in the student affairs field for many years, I've always found that we've done searches for positions. Oftentimes, many years ago, we wouldn't get as diverse a candidate pool as we wanted. And so you're thinking, how do you get diverse candidates? And the light goes on and says, well, you have to build from within then. And at a community like Stony Brook, where we have such a diverse student population, the best way to do that is build your own graduate program and bring your students in that program, mentor them, and create a pipeline so that they become the next generation of student affairs leaders. And I think a place like Stony Brook, we've hopefully done that to the benefit of Stony Brook and the nation. Thank you.
Thank you. What I heard was really the theme of respect and empathy. So thank you very much. So in the interest of time, I'm going to skip a couple of questions and go to this one. Earlier this year, a group called Concerned Women of the College of Arts and Sciences met with the president to discuss different measures to help cut down on workplace sexual harassment at SBU. Some of these measures include reinstating mandatory sexual harassment trainings and amending the reporting system so that victims don't have to meet face-to-face for peer mediation with the accused. What progress has been made with this endeavor so far?
Hi, I'm Judy Kremen. I'm Chief Deputy to the President and oversee government relations and also oversee the Title IX area reports to me, and have been in the meetings with the Concerned Women of Cass, so that's why I get tagged with this question. And so I wanted to say a couple things. One is that we have, as part of the faculty and staff training day in October that Dr. Bitsoy talked about earlier, we will be incorporating a component on both on sexual misconduct on campus, both our process and ways to handle it and things, to do and not to do. Some are obvious and some less so. And while it's training that we do with students, we haven't done any mandatory training with faculty and staff for quite some time. And so this will be incorporated into that day, and then it will be part of what new employees also have to do. And we have a team that's working on it. That component of that day will be led really by our Marjorie Leonard and her team at the Office of Inclusion, Institutional Diversity and Equity. And so they're working on that, and I think that will be very helpful. She will continue, and her team will continue to do the additional training that they do with athletes and with new students, with a range of other groups and people on campus, but this will be geared to faculty and staff, and it is mandatory. The other part of the question, this is sort of my moment to dispel a couple of myths. And so in the course of the conversations that I've been having with Concerned Women of Cass and with other people, some misunderstandings of our process have come up, so I'm going to use this as my soapbox to clear them up. For faculty and staff in this room, there is no need, ever, never was, never will be, for anybody to have to go through a chain of command to go to the office to make a Title IX or other complaint. You do not have to go to your supervisor. You do not have to go to your dean. You do not have to go to your department chair. If there's a concern that you have on sexual misconduct or on race or other discrimination, you can go directly to the office, OIDE, Marjorie Leonard and her team. Again, you do not have to go through some chain of command. Never had to, never will have to. And another sort of misunderstanding seems to be this peer mediation for Title IX cases. There is no mandatory peer mediation for Title IX cases. And in fact, the issue of being in the same room, the only time parties are in the same room, might be in the same room, is during a hearing, and even then you have an option to have a barrier to participate via a web link or not to participate at all in the hearing. And so there is no forced or mandatory coming together of complainants within a Title IX case. It's not part of our process, and it hasn't been. So that's the other rumor to dispel for today. But that was the other part of the question.
Thank you. So now let's open it up to audience questions. We have a couple of mics here. We also have a roving mic.
Hello, I'm CJ, a chill peer educator from the Division of Student Health and Wellness, and my question for you guys is, how can we, Stony Brook students, staff, faculty, all members of our campus community, how can we embrace diversity and make everyone and anyone feel welcome on our campus on a day-to-day basis? How can we have these respectful, diverse conversations?
Rick, you want to take it? Okay. I'll have you provide an answer.
Thanks. I mean, I think it's a great question, very broad question, but I'll give a kind of stab at it. I think what's important is that both from how we communicate to our external community what our values are, I think is very important. So students and faculty who come to Stony Brook know what we stand for. So I think that's very important. I think we do it effectively. I also think when students arrive on campus, whether it's at admitted student events, orientation, their entry into the university, we put a lot of emphasis in terms of diversity, not only into the orientation program, but also in our 101 curriculum and our academic curriculum. And then clearly through a lot of the examples here, I think the university's emphasis on a diversity, equity, inclusion plan, the various student groups that have been involved are things that we're really working together as a team to help improve our work at the university. I think, do you have examples of specific areas that you think we could improve upon?
Like, what can we do? Like, you have your positions of power in Stony Brook where you make things happen. How can we enforce that? How can we embrace that and every day? How can I go to class in an hour and a half and make everybody feel welcome there?
Mm-hmm. So that's where I think also there's a level of individual responsibility. I think if we all take to heart a lot of what the comments were said today, in other words, that we feel that there's a genuine interest among everyone in terms of that dialogue, that in the classroom, that we want to have those conversations, in your residence hall, in lounges, eating in the dining hall, that we all make an effort to connect with people who are different than us. I think in my time at the university, sometimes it's this balancing act of ensuring that people find community within groups that they feel that they're like, but also, as was shared in examples of that, you step out of your community in areas of discomfort so that you learn from others. Because when I think about our role as just not of somebody in power, but as an administrator and an educator who cares about what students will do beyond Stony Brook, I would feel that we did not do our job effectively as educators if students left the university without the context for embracing diversity, so that when they go into graduate studies or professional work, that when they're in a team environment, they actually know how to work together and embrace difference in the group and demonstrate active listening and working in a team environment to solve the problems of this world. So it's maybe I'm speaking a little bit in the abstract, but ultimately I think it all comes from within, about you as an individual, about how much you're willing to help connect with others at the university. Anybody want to add?
Ian, can you add on to that as well, please?
Yeah, so again, touching on what Dean Cato just said, your individual responsibility plays a whole lot into it. So, you're going to class or you're hanging out with friends, being mindful of what you say, being mindful that people come from those different backgrounds, and if you hear somebody saying something, doing something inappropriate, maybe calling them out on that. But also, using your student voice. So there are 16,000 undergrad students here, and you have a huge impact on those students. So as a chill peer educator, as a member of a club or whatever it may be, you have influence over the people you work with, the people you go to class with. And then also, totally gonna plug myself, the USG has student diversity dialogues. We meet bi-weekly. So, you or friends or whatever it may be, you can send representatives to talk about concerns you see or issues concerns or issues you saw, ideas you might have on how to make this more inclusive. I'm one person. I don't know. I have one lived experience. Everyone has their own, and I can't do the work alone. I need student voices so that we can come together and bring those issues to faculty or administration, whatever it may be, or those ideas, making positive change as well. So all of us have that individual responsibility and that initiative to step forward.
Thank you.
Oh yes, you can email me at ilesnick@stonybrookUSG.org, and I will loop you in with all of the meetings. ILESNICK for those of you watching.
Thank you. Do we have another question?
On the topic of discomfort, I think this is a situation where we've all been in. What should you do when you realize after the fact that you did something that did not promote an inclusive environment?
Well, I strongly believe that the best way, self-acknowledgement is definitely step number one, right? If you recognize that you did something that was not per se inclusive of other individuals, I think that the best thing that you can do is just reflect on what happened and find ways for you to not do that again in the future, right? Because you cannot, it's very difficult to answer a question like, how can we make sure that everybody enforces diversity, that everybody recognizes, the true richness of diversity, because we all come from different backgrounds, we all come from different upbringings, different political beliefs. It's very difficult for you to pinpoint like, oh, this is the game plan of how we're all going to pursue this path, correct? So I strongly believe that self-acknowledgement and recognizing your actions and being comfortable with making mistakes, but being comfortable with giving yourself criticism and receiving criticism is definitely going to help you to become a better person in order for you to, promote a safer environment in the future.
All right. So does that...
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Hi, my name is David. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm a member of the Feminist Majority Leadership Alliance, a feminist club on campus. So over spring break over winter break in January, the swim's assistant coach Janelle Atkinson and the assistant coach Jordan Bowen were quietly let go after allegations from the Statesman that the Atkinsons for months had been verbally and mentally abusive to players, and despite claims from players that they had, over the course of months with players, both players and parents, had met with the director of athletics, Sean Heilbrunn, and I was wondering, does Stony Brook Athletics have a plan for how to better listen to and respond to student complaints, and how to avoid a similar situation in the future?
Yeah, as of right now. So, I know with the football team right now, we have like a leadership team that meets with the coach. I want to say it's, I believe, 9 people on it right now that meets with the coach because, like I said, we kind of had a similar thing, but we don't want to call it abuse. But we had definitely a lot of disagreements about like a way how a coach would speak to us, how things were ran. So actually this year, like I said, we have that team of, like I said, athletes that kind of serve as that bridge to, like I said, explaining like, but explaining like, there's other methods of teaching. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't always have to be your stereotypical player to coach relationship. Like I said, your coach yelling at you, stuff like that. But I see the change as of right now. But like I said, there's definitely, as of right now, that's the only thing I can really think of is, like I said, just having, like I said, holding our coach accountable. And like I said, showing him that, like I said, it's not just one person saying something. Like I said, this is a common thing between, like I said, many athletes, you know what I mean? So like I said, obviously you have to change your methods of teaching or, like I said, change just the way you speak to us. Because like I said, everybody handles that differently, you know what I mean? So as of right now, that's the only plan that I know of how we're changing that.
Okay. Does that help? Okay. I think we have time for a couple more questions. Go ahead.
So as you know, Stony Brook has been undergoing some difficulties with the budget, and as a result of that, several academic programs have gone through cuts. A lot of these programs have been in the humanities. So as many people know, the humanities tend to be more heavy with women than the STEM fields, and I don't know if there's a heavier presence of non-white students studying in the humanities, but I was just wondering if any office at Stony Brook kept track of demographic disbursement of non-white students and I guess, gender demographics, how they're dispersed in different academic programs, and if the diversity plan is taken into consideration before cuts to academic programs are made.
I will defer to Dean Traber.
I don't have the data that you're talking about. I haven't seen them myself, but I'm sure that we do have those data. So we could determine what the impact is on different groups on campus. But I haven't seen the data. It is important to recognize that the programs you're talking about, the students can continue who are here in those programs, and so that's not their opportunity is not suspended.
Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if she was on. So first I wanted to say thank you all for coming and for all of your hard work. I know most of you personally, so I know that your enthusiasm is genuine. So my question is related to graduate students. So I wanted to know if in both the implementation of the diversity plan and then like a consideration of different constituent groups, how graduate students factor into that. Just knowing that graduate students are both constituents of yours, maybe not so much USG, and also potential resources for implementing some of these programs. And as Rick mentioned, even future employees here. So.
Thank you for the question. Yes, so graduate students and our Center for Inclusive Education have been and still are heavily involved in the diversity initiative, the planning and the implementation phases. I want to point out Tony Spurzl back here is the Assistant Dean for Diversity in the Graduate School. We have a really vibrant and strong group in the Center for Inclusive Education, led by some really terrific professional staff in that area. I think it's really one of the bright spots at Stony Brook is the strength of our diversity programs in graduate education. But there's always a lot more to do, and I would be very interested. We would be very interested in hearing ideas that you have about how we can improve.
Challenge accepted. Thank you. Thank you.
In the back.
Hi, how are you? So, in terms of, I know you guys talked about physical diversity earlier within social justice. I want to commend the university first for the implementation of all gender bathrooms. However, I feel like one group is not being well represented, and that is the disabled population on campus. I have tried to reach out per the recommendation of whoever it is I spoke to and complained, DSS, regarding multiple issues I found, such as lack of parking in the garages. So clearly, I'm not trying to say that the university is not compliant with the ADA, but one example is on the second floor of the garage, people park in the handicap parking, they like to walk out of admin. Sometime in the evening, late afternoon, they lock the doors of admin. So if someone leaves with a wheelchair and they're parked on the second floor, they have to roll back down onto the first floor of the garage and then fight their way up to the second floor to access their vehicle. I had asked for what could be done to remedy this, and I was told it's not as simple as having a police officer there to unlock the building at night for evening students. I was told it will take time and money. Also, when I was looking for housing, I asked, what's a handicap accessible building? I was told Keller College. They have an elevator that breaks down often. They have no handicap accessible stalls on the dormitory floors, nor do they have automatic openers for the doors. One handicap spot that is the furthest spot from the door. One thing I want to suggest, which I've been pushing for a while, is the ADA is outdated. If we want to show that we are a progressive campus, we will go above and beyond with what we need to do. So that would mean adding more handicap parking to be in line with the current disabled population. I don't mean to keep rambling, I'm sorry if I am. But just to quickly inform you guys, the ADA requires 4% of all parking spaces to be designated as handicap. That's based off a study in the early 90s that showed that 4% of the US population had severe difficulties walking or climbing stairs. Now that number is up to 13%. That means every time people like me with a handicap placard go in search of a handicap parking spot, statistically speaking, I'm competing with 12 other people for that spot. Not to count the fact that a lot of able-bodied individuals park freely wherever they want. I came back from vacation the other night. Within 24 hours, I got 3 people tickets for taking up the one handicap spot in my dorm. And it keeps happening, and the police, I understand they're overburdened with other problems. They don't seem to want to deal with it. So if we want to show we're progressive, we should go above and beyond just what's federally required. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marissa Trachtenberg. I'm actually an assistant to President Stanley and very involved in many things related to ADA efforts on campus. But first, I want to say thank you for sharing your experience. We should definitely talk offline and continue the dialogue. There's so many things happening at the university as it relates to the ADA. So you make a very great point that the ADA is something, a federal piece of legislation that really speaks to the physical access needs on campus, and we're doing a lot of great work in that area. And also when it comes to web accessibility, and so the technological era that we are now in, which we weren't in when the ADA was passed in the 90s. And so I cannot speak to the parking part of your concerns, but I am very happy to talk offline with you about many of the other efforts we have going on. But for your parking concern, I'm going to actually defer over to Matt Whalen.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. That is a great point on the admin and the parking and the locking of the building, which I believe occurs around 8 o'clock. So I'm actually meeting at 2:15 with the police chief and at 2:45 with the head of facilities who's in charge of parking. They'll hear about this from me, and I'll look to see if we can expedite solutions, because I see that as a real issue if you're coming from the library through admin. So,
yeah, I appreciate that.
And you, again, if you connect, my name again is Matt Whalen. I'm in the president's office, currently interim vice president for facilities and services, along with a few other things. So if you'd like to come see me, we can talk a lot more about some of these issues.
I would love to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have something else to add to that?
On the parking, there was several things in that question. I think you also talked about the residence hall access, and if I'm missing some other things, you can reiterate that?
Yes, so like how I gave the example of the all-gender bathrooms, because obviously that's not a federal mandate yet, but we decided to do that to be inclusive and come off as progressive, which I think is great. But I think in line with that thinking, we should also say, hey, statistically, 13% of the US population has severe mobility impairments, so they would require handicap parking. Why don't we make 13% of all parking spaces as handicap? Because I'm actually pushing for this, I created 10-plus page written legislative proposal, and I sat down with Senator Laval, government officials in the county and local villages. So I'm pushing to get it approved and become an actual piece of legislation. But why wait for that? Let's show we're progressive by being the change we want to see in the world and doing it before it's required of us.
Good. Well, I appreciate that. One of the things I'd have to go back and look at is what percentage are currently disabled student or faculty or staff parking, where they are, what the location of those are in regard to where the demand is. So it's a multivariable question that I'm happy to sit down with you and talk about and bring forward to the people who handle that as a priority. So that's the role I can help play with this. And then also see if we can seek the funding necessary to fund any changes that need to be made on a priority basis.
I really appreciate that. And in fact, I can reach out to you later today and email you my finalized proposal, and there's all the citations, because I put a lot of work into it, for where you can find the data that's backing it, that shows it's needed, and we'll make headlines and everyone will say Stony Brook is great if we do that. Well,
thank you.
Because we are great.
Okay, so I think we have time for one more question.
Just to add, my father came here as an immigrant from Lebanon in the 70s, and he talks about how much he loves Stony Brook because it was so diverse. He said, oh, I was there with the hippies and there was no racism or anything. So now I'm coming here as a first generation. I don't have that issue, but I'm representing a different group here today, the disabled population. I'm not here to bark at you guys. I want to work collaboratively. But I'm just going to mention, and I hope no one gets upset with me for this, but I'm a seasoned Stony Brook basketball ticket holder. I actually sit courtside right by President Stanley, and I have been for years. But what irks me is going in, and because of the lack of accessible parking, I often have to park in the back of the parking lot, and then I walk up and see a sign that says reserved for President Stanley right by the entrance. I mean, if President Stanley believes that this is not necessary, I would welcome him to park in the back of the lot and strap 50-pound dumbbells to his legs and try walking in to kind of get a feel for what people like myself have to go through. Again, I want to work collaboratively, but I just want to show you why I'm kind of irked about this.
Great. Well, we'll start in 30 seconds when I come to see you at the end of the meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we have time for one more question, please. And I'm trying to be mindful of everyone's time.
Hi, my name is Evelyn, and I have a question about recruiting. So I'm the secretary for LISA, which is the Long Island Immigrant Student Advocates here in Stony Brook. And we've been going to a lot of college fairs, especially surrounding low-income Latino families and immigrant populations. And what we've been noticing is that there's a lack of bilingual recruiters. So a lot of these parents who don't speak English have a trouble communicating with the Stony Brook recruiters and often come to us. I've even offered tours to families to come here and help translate. And it goes from problems with recruiters to problems with tour guides, because often these parents, even the students alone, tell me that they have a hard time understanding because they can't, unfortunately, the language barrier. So I'm wondering what we can do about this, how we, because I do this, because obviously I want these low-income families to come to Stony Brook because this is like the dream school. And it's kind of upsetting when parents can't be involved with their students' education because of that language barrier. So what can we do about that and recruiting people that speak maybe more than 2 languages to help these parents and the students better understand Stony Brook and know that they're welcome here?
Excellent question. So if you can turn the mic over to Rodney Morrison.
Hi, Rodney Morrison, Associate Provost for Enrollment and Retention Management, and I oversee admissions. So if you give me your email, we'll get you on, if you'd like to become a tour guide and do some other things, we'd love to have you. So, but I want to have a serious conversation about other, the broader conversation, because I think you're right in that. I think we have to be more mindful of not just the student but the parents and maybe their inability or having the barrier, not being able to speak the language. So that's something we talk about a lot. How can we connect with students and families? So if you want to give me your email, we can chat after. Okay.
Thank you. So thank you again for joining us today. Sometimes change can be difficult, but we should take comfort in knowing that we are making an impact in the lives of our students, our communities, and the world. And before we close, I'd like to leave you with some words of advice from 2 of our recent presenters. The first one comes from diversity expert Vernon Wall, and he shared that we cannot engage in meaningful transformational change from a place of anger. Instead, we should work from a place of empathy and respect. The second quote comes from Chef Artie Sequeira, and she recommends that we need to be present. We need to appreciate what we have, and we need to take care of it. We need to flourish where we are planted. Thank you.